AI agents are leaving the demo stage. The new bottleneck is not the prompt. It is the infrastructure around the agent, not the demo, not the chat window. The real test is what happens when an agent touches actual business systems. A chatbot answers. A workflow agent acts. It reads data, calls tools, checks state, asks for approval, and moves work forward. That sounds like a small shift, but it turns AI from a writing assistant into an operating layer. This is why the agent conversation feels different now. Companies are not only asking agents to summarize documents. They are testing agents on alerts, code changes, customer tickets, research, financial analysis, and internal operations. Anthropic says 57% of organizations now deploy agents for multi-stage workflows. Another 16% are already running cross-functional processes across multiple teams. That is not a chatbot trend. That is an operations trend. Anthropic also says 80% of organizations report measurable economic returns from their AI agent investments. So the market is not waiting for some future moment where agents become useful. For many teams, they are already useful. But usefulness creates pressure. Once agents work, companies want to scale them. And that is where the wall appears. TechRadar, summarizing Google Cloud research, reported that 83% say infrastructure upgrades are needed for production-grade agentic AI. That number is the story. The question is moving from, can AI do the task, to, can our companies survive AI doing the task at scale? One agent running one workflow is manageable. Hundreds of agents become a system. Think about how this spreads. Marketing builds campaign agents. Finance builds forecasting agents. Support builds escalation agents. Engineering builds coding agents. Security builds tree of agents. Each one starts as a productivity experiment. Then each one needs access. One needs customer tickets. One needs invoices. One needs source code. One needs cloud logs. One needs CRM data. One needs permission to write back into a system. This is the part many AI demos skip. A sales agent does not need the same access as a security agent. A finance agent should not touch the same tools as a marketing agent. A coding agent creates a different risk profile from a customer support agent. The company needs different rules for each workflow. There is also an ownership problem. Who owns the agent after the demo? The person who built it? The team that uses it? IT? Security? Operations? If nobody owns the agent, nobody owns the cost, the failure path, the access rules, or the cleanup. At small scale, this looks like progress. At enterprise scale, it becomes a control problem. Who can see what each agent is doing? Who approve the tools it can use? What happens when two agents make conflicting decisions? The first bottleneck is data. Agents do not magically fix messy data. If the data is siloed, stale, duplicated, unlabeled, or owned by nobody, the agent becomes slower, riskier, and more expensive. A support agent can sound helpful while using an outdated policy. A finance agent can produce a polished answer from duplicated invoices. A sales agent can recommend the wrong next step because the CRM record is stale. The risk is not that the agent sounds bad. The risk is that it sounds confident while the workflow is wrong. That is why the data layer needs product thinking. Each source needs an owner. Each source needs freshness rules. Each source needs permission boundaries. And each workflow needs a fallback when the agent cannot trust the information in front of it. The second bottleneck is tools. A useful agent needs tools. It needs to query a database, open an internal app, search a knowledge base, or trigger a workflow. But every tool call creates a boundary. Tools also fail in boring ways. A request times out. A rate limit hits. A schema changes. A required field is missing. A write only partially completes. A real agent system needs to know what to do when a tool fails halfway through a workflow. The third bottleneck is permissions. Read access is one risk. Write access is another. If an agent can refund a customer, deploy code, update records, or escalate incidents, it needs machine-enforced rules, not vibes. Human approval also has to be designed. Approval is not just a button. Low-risk actions can be automatic. Medium-risk actions can need review. High-risk actions should be blocked or escalated. Without this design, teams either slow everything down or let agents move too freely. Permissions also drift over time. A safe agent gets one more tool, then one more data source, then one more role. The original approval logic no longer matches what the agent can actually do. This is how agent sprawl becomes governance debt. The fourth bottleneck is cost. People talk about model prices, but production agents create workflow cost. Retrieval costs money. Tool calls cost money. Retries cost money. Validation, logging, review, and monitoring all compound. This means every production agent needs a budget boundary. How much can it spend per task? How many retries are allowed? When should it use a cheaper model? When should it stop and ask a human? Cost control is not only finance. It is product safety. The fifth bottleneck is observability. You cannot improve what you cannot inspect. Companies need logs of inputs, data sources, tool calls, actions, costs, failures, and handoffs. Otherwise, nobody knows what the agent actually did. Agent quality also has to be measured over time. A good launch does not prove a stable system. Teams need samples, failure tracking, cost reports, action reviews, and regular retesting. The system has to improve as real edge cases appear. And when an agent fails, the team needs a playbook. Can the workflow be paused? Can the action be rolled back? Who gets notified? Which logs matter? What rule needs to change before the agent runs again? This is normal operations, not science fiction. The sixth bottleneck is security. Agents do not sit politely in one box. They connect data, tools, users, and decisions. That expands the attack surface, the compliance surface, and the number of failure modes the business has to understand. Compliance follows the workflow. If an agent touches regulated data, customer records, payments, hiring, security, or legal work, the audit trail matters. The business needs to prove what happened, why it happened, and who approved the action. This also changes the human role. People move from task execution to supervision. The work becomes defining goals, setting guardrails, catching mistakes, handling exceptions, and deciding where automation should stop. This does not mean every employee becomes a prompt engineer. A better way to say it is that teams need agent operators. People who understand the workflow, the data, the risk, and the review path. They do not just ask the agent for answers. They manage the system. Most failures will not look dramatic. They will look boring. Slow approval, bad data, unclear ownership, confusing logs, cost spikes, retry loops. Nobody knows whether the agent failed or the process around it failed. That is why the winners are not just collecting prompts. They are building control planes. Identity, permissions, observability, cost control, approval paths, failure handling. The value is not one clever agent. The value is the operating system for agent work. The practical rollout should start narrow. One workflow, one owner, limited tools, clear permissions, real logs, measured outcome. Then the company can harden the system before expanding it. Scaling agent chaos is not transformation. It is just faster mess. For executives, this is the strategic point. The mode is not the prompt. Prompt spread. Models improve. Templates get copied. The durable advantage is workflow knowledge, clean data, control systems, evaluation loops, and trust inside the organization. So the practical question is not only, what agent can we build? The better question is, what system does this agent need around it? What data? What tools? What permissions? What cost limit? What human review? What audit trail? The frontier is operational now. Better models matter, but models alone do not create production systems. Agents become real when the business can control them, measure them, limit them, and trust the workflow around them. The next frontier is not smarter chat. It is real data, real tools, real rules, real costs, real failures, and real accountability. AI agents are leaving the demo stage. The companies that win will be the companies that build the infrastructure around them.